If your marketing team is drowning in PDFs, spreadsheets, and newsletters, you're not alone. The problem isn't lack of information per se, it's that no one can find what they need when they need it. I've been testing how Google Notebook can solve this, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorite ways to organize insights across files, reports, and research in a way that actually supports decision making. In this video, I'll show you how to turn scattered insights and knowledge into something that can actually be searched and something that's strategic and can be shared across your teams. The problem that I see with small businesses that only just gets worse as the business grows is too many data sources that don't speak to each other. So you have one source for marketing, one source for sales, one source for customer experience, but they're not connected, they're not integrated. And so there's a lot of waste in terms of finding the one person in the company who has information on this topic, or slowing decisions because sales has one perspective based off of their data and marketing has a different perspective based off of their data set, or missing insights altogether because it just sits somewhere else within the company. And so there's a lot of cost of rework and confusion and arguments just because the data doesn't talk to each other. To give an example, I did a pilot study with a CPG company back in 2018, and we were testing a new AI tool back then that was strictly for knowledge management. How do we combine all of the customer insights that we have across PDFs, PowerPoint reports, videos, along with some of the other marketing data and point of sales data to have one view of what the customer needed from our company. And I ran this pilot, like I said, quite a number of years ago, but I sold it into the business because the tool itself was maybe $5,000 for 6 months. But compare that to the cost of a new research study, $10,000. So if we could save ourselves $10,000 by using the insights and data that we already had instead of commissioning a new research report, the tool would pay for itself. And some of the use cases were helping new hires onboard themselves faster because they don't have the established network when they first come in to identify who's the key contact for which key questions. Another use case was there was a maturing workforce at the time. And so as we had more and more people leaving the company, their knowledge and their expertise was walking out the door with them. And so we needed a way to return or to restore those insights within the company as the workforce was maturing. And what we found after doing that 6-month pilot test is that it saved an incredible amount of time, and it saved us from having to commission new research studies by giving us the right information for the right decision at the right time. Okay, now I'm going to introduce you to this tool that I am obsessed with. This is not paid. I am getting no kickback for this. I am just that much of a fan, and you might be too after watching this. So think of NotebookLM. It's a product by Google. Google LM is sometimes what I call it. But anyway, think of it as ChatGPT using data that you already trust. Does the same functionality, so you can ask it questions and it gives you results, but you have complete control over what data sources go into it and what data sources it's pulling from. And it's really seamless to integrate it to your tools, integrate it into your current workflows, and it's not that expensive. If you already have Google Workspace, it's included. If not, then the pricing is still quite friendly. So highly recommend it. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of a sneak peek on its functionality. So what you can do is you can upload all of the tools and ebooks and newsletters that you get directly into this. It handles YouTube videos, for example. You can connect it directly to your Google Drive. All of the copied texts, or like I said, ebooks that you might have, go into this. And then when you create your new notebook, I'll show you an example from one that I created. Right now I'm doing a deep dive into the customer journey. You have your sources here. There's different creators that I like to follow on the topic, some things that I have researched myself from first party data. You upload your sources, and then you just have a conversation here about that information so that you have not too much information. Think about going to an analyst on your team and you have one question and you really want them to give you one answer, but instead they go down the rabbit hole and explain to you everything they know on the subject. I might or might not have firsthand experience doing that and being on the receiving end, but this will give you exactly the information you're looking for from data sources you can trust, like I said. And then my favorite part about this is then you can go into the studio. So then you are creating research and data supported content. You can create podcasts, you can create videos, mind maps, reports, slide decks, all from the data sources that you have. Infographics. I use this for some of my lead magnets that I want to generate, and I don't have an entire production team to create those high quality graphics, and I use this to help me with that. So really cool tool. You can share it with your team and give them access directly to their email. When they receive it, you can give certain permissions. Can they view it? Can they edit the notebook themselves? If you want to have the most control over what information makes it into this tool and what information stays out, then I would just give them viewing access, and they'll just see the chat functionality so that they have the information but don't have all of the back end. So eliminating arguments because you guys are all working on one source of truth. So cool, so cool. Once you start capturing what actually matters across your data sources, your team doesn't just get faster, they get smarter. But too many teams are spending time and budget on busy work that doesn't actually move the needle. That's why I created the CMO's Stop Doing Budget Checklist. It helps you to find and eliminate that low impact work so that you can focus on what really drives results for your business. The link is right at the top of the description. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through how do you use Google Notebook for a real marketing workflow. So this is an example. I was doing a thought leadership piece on consumer trends and consumer habits in 2026. And I wanted to include both data that I had produced myself and some well-respected peers in this space to both bring my perspective and maybe challenge some of the perspectives that I had heard around previously. So I uploaded the data into this tool. So again, some research that I had created, a PDF that I found from another agency, and a LinkedIn article from Deneen Harper because I wanted to bring in her perspective. I really respected what she had to say about the topic. So I brought that in here, and I wasn't just going to copy paste that exactly. I needed to really understand what were some of the overlapping parts. So I started with the mind map, generated that based on all of the data sources to draw those connections that maybe I didn't make in my first pass. So I'm going to let that think for a second, and then, oh no, it's ready. So drawing a mind map lets me see where there's alignment across the different sources and where they might be talking about different things. So some of the trends for 2026, AI and the technical evolution is an obvious one, but it's a little bit of a source of contention. There's a lot happening in discovery, but then there's also a bit of content fatigue as more and more people are churning out content. It gets to be a little bit overwhelming, and it's driving different decision making in shopper behavior, but more on that in some other video. But then also using this tool to find things that I hadn't seen, like a new influence model. What's that? And then you can see which exact sources are speaking to that. And so going back and forth with the tool helps you to find connections that I didn't see initially. So then I can have a conversation with this data if I want to say, okay, this is all insights that I've heard before. You're not saying anything new. I need you to stretch my thinking and come up with high value, high impact insights that maybe haven't been heard before. So then you have a conversation back and forth with this data to really push and stretch your thinking to the next level. And then I needed some sort of graphic because I'm going to make this into thought leadership content. And I made an infographic. In this instance, I made a podcast previously, but let's try an infographic and see what that comes back with. And while it's thinking about that, I wanted to give a couple more use cases. So I was on a sales call and someone was trying to pitch me something, and I wasn't completely bought into what they were trying to pitch me. It was a certification to become an AI consultant, and I wasn't entirely convinced that a certification was really what I needed. But I noticed when I asked the sales representative for specific use cases of people who have gotten the certification and the contracts that they've landed afterwards, he didn't know initially, fine, but then I see him busily typing on his computer, and he tells me that he's checking in with his team members on finding those specific use cases for me and testimonials. And then within seconds of consulting his team members, it may have been an AI team member, he was able to generate and come back to me with those use cases. It wasn't enough to bring me over the edge to make a purchase, but you can see how your sales team can use a tool like this to answer some of those challenging objections that your customers might have. So that's one use case that I've come across in the wild. So the infographic is finished. Let's see what it did. So without a lot of input from me, it generated a pretty nice infographic talking about some of the trends that were mentioned across the data. So did post something very similar to this on my LinkedIn, summarizing some of the things that will be driving consumer behavior in 2026. So that's a nice use case for you to show from insights all the way to a finished marketing material, how you can do that. Well, actually, it wouldn't be finished. We would need to do the copy. So then I would go back and I would type in here. It already knows who my key target audience is here as well. Yeah, cool stuff, huh? Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk to you about here is how to make this stick. Like I said, there was a pilot test that was run around 2018. We tested a knowledge management tool very similar to Google Notebook, and we tested it for about 6 months and didn't take it any further. And I want to keep you from making the same mistakes. So the first problem that came up with that pilot test was the governance around the data wasn't in place. So when we use the tool to ask natural questions about the data, it would return information that was inaccurate. And it wasn't that the tool was misfunctioning. It was that the data that it was calling on to generate those answers wasn't structured in a way that the AI could read quite easily. So there's a lot of businesses that have to really take a step back and think through how are they structuring their data? How are they creating governance on what data gets finalized and where that data lives so that it can be really fully accessed by AI, understood by AI, and served up to your team when they need it. So that's watch out number one. governance and settling your tech debt is basically what that is, to make this tool the most effective as it can be. The next thing that we came into was that someone in sales, yes, they can benefit from data that is collected by customer service, but not all of that data is going to be relevant for them. So one of the issues that we came across in the pilot was people wanted role specific information. So they wanted to have access to the information relevant for their role and not much else. And so one of the things that I advised at the end of that pilot was to create permission based control over this permission or user ID sits in this role and needs access to this information, so that it's just a little more streamlined to what's going to be relevant for them. And you can better control proprietary data or some intel that is not widely distributed across your business. And then another thing that is something that I have seen kill more technology integrations than anything is human behavior. People always tend to think about how people will adopt the technology last, but it's really the first challenge, and maybe one of the biggest challenges to getting technology adopted is helping people to see how they can integrate this into their work streams. And so you need to have some sort of a training program at the minimum to help people realize what this tool is capable of, what it's not capable of, and get them in the habit of consulting it versus picking up the phone call to every subject matter expert and setting those calls just because that's what they've already done. When you turn scattered information into shared knowledge, your team stops guessing and starts growing. But finding the insights is just the first step. If you want to see how to turn those insights into marketing campaigns that really resonate with your audience and convert, watch the next video right here. I'll walk you through exactly how to build campaigns without the guesswork, using real customer insights and understanding to drive real results.